Oh, shoot. Happy July 3rd, and welcome to the Duluth Conservative for all you people out there watching. I'm Sean.
I'm Dave.
And we are the Duluth Conservative. So we're here to enlighten you on stuff that happens in Duluth, happens in Minnesota, happens nationally and internationally, and talk about a little bit of health and fitness. So it's going to be a good time. It's ending up to a 4-day weekend for me. I'm taking Monday off. So, hey, this is it. Once we do this, free.
We're out of here, yep.
So, how's it going, Dave? Anything new?
Yeah, nothing really too exciting is happening. So, hopefully I couldn't get a screenshot of this of the hospital where everyone was blowing their fingers off and they're showing X-rays. So, it's 4th tomorrow, so make sure you're careful with your fireworks. So.
Yeah, no kidding. And remember, a firework like this in your hand, at least it won't blow your fingers off. But like this, kabam.
Yeah.
And I don't know that from experience because I still got all 10 digits.
Yeah, we're always here. So we're good on our safety. That's why we sit behind microphones. It's safer.
That's right. That's why I don't have a real job. I work at a desk. Well, I was all excited. We were going to be live streaming to Twitter, YouTube, and to Rumble. But then as I started the thing, it said, you need a premium Twitter account to do this. So needless to say, I wasn't about to just set up the premium account right now. It's just so we could live stream it. So maybe next week we'll do that.
We'll get it straightened out.
Right. All right. Well, let's launch in a little bit and let's just talk about, before we go into Duluth news, we're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill that has passed and is waiting for Donald Trump to sign it. And he'll be signing it, I believe, tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern time. He wanted it before the 4th of July. Mike Johnson said he'd get it to him day early. And he's doing this intentionally to sign it on the 4th. So he's waiting till tomorrow to do it.
Yeah.
I haven't looked at a ton of stuff on this bill. I've seen some really good stuff, but I haven't seen any bad stuff yet. I did see that people are complaining about other people getting kicked off of Medicaid. But then when I read more about it, it was illegal immigrants or illegal foreigners were going to get kicked off of it. And people that were going to have to put in 80 hours a month of work to qualify for it. So these are single people without children who are physically able to work, have to put in 80 hours of work a month in order to qualify. So they said, so when they were coming up with the calculations for who was going to get kicked off, it was illegal foreigners, people who didn't want to work and were going to get kicked off, and then people who didn't want to pay, I think it was a $15 copay or something for something. So that was when they said people were going to get kicked off, what they meant to say was some people are getting kicked off because they're not from this country and therefore shouldn't be on it, or just weren't going to renew it because of work requirements or of costs associated with new costs coming up. That doesn't seem like the same thing as kicking people off of Medicaid. We'll see when this shakes out.
I mean, that's just getting rid of fraud, basically. So the only thing that there isn't a lot of information, like you said, but the only thing that I didn't like about it was they increased the debt spending limit by $5 trillion.
Right. So there's a lot of potential for a lot of spending going on, deficit spending.
Right.
This is the thing that Musk is ranting about right now, I believe.
Yeah, and I see it on the Positive News Network where they're saying how great the bill is, and then they still said debt limit increased. So it's like, well, we're conservatives. When are we to pay attention to the deficit? When are we going to start paying this back? We're already paying $1 trillion a year for interest on the debt. That's a waste of money, So when are we going to start paying this back? And that's kind of what I heard on the news last night was, why things weren't going as smoothly as, because the holdouts were conservatives and wanted to pay the debt down.
I think when we were in high school, the national debt was $3 trillion. And now it's over 30.
Yeah.
And there's a distinction between the debt and a deficit. So the deficit is on a year-to-year budget or a biannual budget, you figure out what you're going to spend, and then that's your budget. And then if you're spending more than you're taking in, that's the budget deficit. That's different from the debt. The debt is year over year as you have budget deficits, that money adds up, just like a credit card. So it's easy for people to conceptualize in a credit card that if you spend more on your credit card than you make, you can't pay off your credit card. That's the budget deficit. And then the debt is month to month as those things add up. That's your debt. So that's just in case you're curious about that or unclear about that. But this has been so unhinged the last 12, 20 years. It's hard for me to conceptualize fixing this at this point. And I don't know what happens then when we can't get to a point, I don't believe, where we can start paying off the debt. We certainly can't get there unless we get a budget that's balanced. And that would be the first thing I'd like to do, is get a budget balance, like you said. We've gotten such horrible bills the last 4 years and horrible things. And the same people who are complaining about the spending were the ones that gave a blank check to Joe Biden. These are the same people that voted for money to Ukraine, money to all these other things, USAID, that if it's going to happen again, but we're going to get something out of it, at least we're getting something out of it. So I know that they're increasing the budget or the border security by a huge amount.
Yeah.
And that's going to step up the deportations of illegal foreigners in our country. And that'll be a good thing. That'll free up hospitals, free up housing, free up all our medical care, what we're spending on it. So that's good stuff coming out of it. I've seen some other things, but I'll have to read more about it as we go. But it looks like it has been passed. And if anybody is watching this and knows of anything that's happening in the bill, or watches this after it's live and has comments about it, please comment on it. Kind of give a summary of what you think is good and bad. I haven't seen anything yet that I found out too bad, except for, like you said, Dave, the spending.
Yeah. 4.1 billion to hire new border agents. 45.6 billion to complete the border wall. So, unfortunately, that's to protect the country, to protect American citizens. That's money that has to be spent. But the 45 billion to build the wall, that's a one-time deal. So that's a little bit less of a deal than having to spend $4 billion every so often to have ICE agents or border agents. So,
and we talked about it last week. The frustrating thing about this is we're fixing a problem that shouldn't have been a problem in the first place. This was because starting with Obama and then Biden for sure, it was flooding this nation with people. And that's what we're trying to clean up. So if we didn't have this problem, we wouldn't have to fix it, and then we'd have money for other things. And that goes for a lot of stuff we're doing now.
Right. And Obama increased the debt more than all the presidents prior to him combined. Ooh. Yeah. So that statistic shows right there that he was the tax and spend president. Well, that's how he thought to balance a budget. Just
interesting thing about Obama too. I was just thinking about Obama just as long as we went on this tangent. When he was president, I remember that he was untouchable from the press. Like they would not say a bad thing about him because they were so afraid of him. And that was really a bad thing. When the press is afraid to talk about the president for whatever reason, that's a bad thing. And they really were. I mean, I lived through how they abused Reagan. Carter, I remember Carter just got beaten up like crazy when he was president. I actually remember, I'm old enough to remember Ford getting knocked around quite a bit. And then they were brutal to Carter because they were coming off this high of going after Nixon at that time. And they thought they were the man, right? They were in charge, and they picked and choose who they were going to be like controlling the presidency. So, it was Reagan, it was Bush Sr., it was who came after it? Clinton. Clinton, he had a grace period like most of them had at first, but then he was getting beat up pretty good. And then Bush Jr., he got beat up horribly.
Completely, yeah.
And then Obama came and it was like suddenly done, just done. No problems whatsoever. And then, Trump gets elected and they're just full on. Now, this time it's a little different. I think of it like you're at a gunfight. The other side has expended all their bullets. They've tried everything to get him out of office. They've tried any scandal they can think of, and it's all just vaporware from what happens to him. He knows he's not doing anything wrong. So he's been able to beat so many things. At this point, they just don't have any ammunition. They don't have anything to go after him with anymore, which is great.
Well, yeah, and then now they're starting to learn how much time and money they wasted, that even the donors for the DNC don't want anything to do with the DNC anymore, and they quit giving them money, and now the DNC is short of cash, and there's rumors about bankruptcy, and there's rumors about not having money. So for next year's elections, it's going to completely change because they won't be able to outpower the GOP, wide open. So.
Look what the hills they're dying on.
Yeah.
Men and women's sports. They're pro every country except America. So Ukraine, Palestine, Israel, now Iran. That one mystifies me.
Right.
So, yeah, it's their more moderate members are looking at that going, who is this party? This is not the same party it was 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, I don't think. They really went off the rails.
Yeah, they really went extreme, and they were even against the big beautiful bill that just got passed. So they're against no tips on tips or overtime, no tax on tips or overtime.
Right? How can you be against that? Especially when there are reasonable caps on it. You can't take a big advantage of this. So people don't make a lot of money on tips, but they make a good amount. And I think it's like $20,000. It's top.
I heard 28, but still, it's
that's
not
a good
as
amount of tips.
Yeah, that's a lot of tips, but still, there's a limit on it. It's not as if they can scam the system by saying they got $120,000 worth of tips.
Right.
So.
Well, one of the things I heard of to do is, you do a job and you pay, you bill them $100 and then you get a $15,000 tip. That was the fear of what was going to happen. Well, that's not going to happen with this. So some reasonable things were done. What else was on there? You got the list. So why don't you go through what is the list of things that you saw that was good?
Just quickly, the car loan interest, you can deduct that from your taxes but that's only till 2028. So you only got 3 years of Medicaid work requirements. They increased that. We talked about the debt limit increased by $5 trillion. They increased defense spending, and a lot of it's for the Golden Dome. So, they want to, that's for our protection.
Right.
And then they increased the immigration enforcement by 45 million. So just a few things that were, it just was signed yesterday. So it was one of those stupid bills that we don't really know what's in it until they sign it. And so now,
I hope they've had they made them read it, right? Didn't they make them read the entire thing?
Yeah, they did. And
I think that's a good thing too, by the way. I don't not like that. I like that they had to go read that thing. That's what they should do for every bill.
Yeah, but I heard it was like 1,200 pages long. How do you read that in 12 hours? I don't know.
Oh no, it was like 28 hours, I think it took.
Yeah. But the most hilarious thing that came out of it was they had the definition for a man and a woman in there.
And they had to read it.
Senator Schumer had to sit there and listen to him define what a woman was and define what a man was. So
that must have killed them, man.
Yeah. So they're the ones that wanted it, and they got burnt by it. So it was good.
I did see that Tina Smith, our great Senator Tina Smith, who's on her way out, she said, what the Republicans did here is simple. They voted to kick 16 million people off of health insurance while giving massive tax breaks to billionaires and corporations, and managed to raise the debt by a staggering $5 trillion. So the amazing things about this, number one, the only time I see a Democrat worried about money is when they're not in power. It's the only time.
Yeah.
Number two, they always have to bring up they're kicking it off to give to billionaires. They switched to billionaires from millionaires because they are all millionaires. So they can't attack millionaires anymore. And they finally came to the conclusion that we're attacking ourselves. We can't do that. So we got to step it up to billionaires. And of course, they're trying to kick people off of health insurance because really what conservatives are just heartless people that don't care about anything. Yeah. The truth of the matter is we care just as much about the same things. I would love it if everybody had health insurance, but I don't want to have to be forced to work another extra 20 years of my life to provide that to people. I'd like them to be able to get that themselves. So it's this, I would like the same outcome. I think we have the same outcomes in mind to a point, but how we approach it is, I think that if you want something like that, you either have to voluntarily pay for it or help pay for it. And what the left wants to do is make everybody else pay for it. They don't care how much you have to work for it.
Yeah, that's basically socialism. So.
Oh, yes, that's what it is.
And, you know, the part about the billionaires is, you know, when especially the politicians, when people get jobs, who do they get it from? Well, not the homeless people.
Yeah.
They
don't quite understand that part now.
They get it from people that have money, that have taken the risk and have earned a whole bunch of money, and that's who gives them people jobs.
Right.
You take the taxes away from a billionaire, then he, you know, if you give more money to a billionaire, he will reinvest it every single time. So he is helping the economy. He doesn't just hoard money. You know, even Elon Musk, he's worth $400 billion. They said if he wants to buy a $5 million house, he has to sell things to buy that. It's not just 400 billion cash sitting in his pocket.
No, he doesn't have none of that. And if he sells a bunch of stock, the stock prices dive. So you got to be very careful about how much you sell.
Yeah, so he's, you know, that's when you say stupid stuff like Tina Smith says, that's what happens, you know.
Well, luckily Tina's leaving, so that's good. All right, let's move on to Duluth news. Local. So let's see. Let's start with a city council thing. The city council has rejected a renter's right to repair, but there are enough votes to put it onto a referendum so that the city itself can vote on this. And it's an interesting thing because, first of all, the city council voted 6-2 or 2-6 against empowering the tenants to take action on their own. That's how it's written in the paper. So it's, you know, they're manipulating how it's being said. Yeah. But they did vote 6-2 for an alternative proposal. But they're also coming up with a pathway for people who voted for this, who signed the petition, to unsign the petition. Because in their view, you just made a mistake because you didn't know what you were doing. So we're going to give you an opportunity to do it. Now, both ways cost us more money, no matter which way it is.
Right.
And the right to repair thing sounds good on paper. So first of all, the title is very good. It is troubling, though, to me about this is you have a certain amount of days as a landlord to fix a particular problem. And I don't know if they're classified as emergency problems only or all problems. But you have a certain amount of time to fix them before the tenants can fix them and then bill the landlord for it. And it gets to the point where you have to ask the question, who owns this house and who is, you know, what is the responsibility of the government in this? Right. And I don't think it is to allow tenants to just basically take ownership. And somebody pointed out that it's only going to take a certain amount of time before these tenants figure out that they can just take these houses basically from the landlords. And what you're going to do is stifle the landlords. They're not going to want to rent to you, or the rents are going to go so high that you're not going to be able to afford it. What are your thoughts?
You'll be in that squatting. They'll be in that squatting range where the government will make it legal to. You don't have to pay your rent because your house isn't up to code. The rental, so you'll be living there for free. The owner will still have to pay. The landlord will still have to pay for it, and you'll be living there for free. And I mean, it'll be no different than a squatter situation. I don't know. Some states have gone the other direction, is making sure that squatters have no rights.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, Minnesota seems to be going the other direction of taking away the rights of the landlords. So you're right. You're either going to get a huge increase in how much it costs to rent something, or no one's going to rent. You're only going to rent to extremely wealthy people.
And like you said before, there's plenty of laws in place right now to protect renters.
Yeah, the state has amazing amount of laws to protect a renter. So they're just doubling down on exactly the same thing.
Yeah, because you were a renter for many, many years.
Yeah. I rented for a long time and didn't have any problems. So.
Well, I know you had issues that you fixed, but you did it in conjunction with the landlord, right?
Yeah, because it was quicker for me to fix them than to wait for someone to repair them. So I just fixed them myself and billed the landlord. But that was agreed to prior to anything happening. I always gave him
with the landlord.
Yeah, you have to work with him, and I gave him the opportunity to fix it first, then before I got my hands on it. So
I saw an interesting letter to the editor about this, and it was basically they didn't like the fact that it came to a petition, a referendum to the city, because that takes away power from the city councilors, and they're supposed to be, we're supposed to go up there on bended knee, kiss their ring, and make sure that they give us what we think, they think is best, and then they take care of us, like paternalistic government, like socialism. And so I don't find it a problem if you got enough people that want to put on a referendum, put it up in a referendum, and then the people of the city get to decide, not just the city councilors.
Correct. Yeah.
Because I think we've seen pretty good. A lot of times there's an agenda at the city council, and they are definitely not your conservative group. So
far from, yeah.
If this goes up, honestly, I hope it gets shot down, but it should go up, and hopefully it's not hidden like they do some referendums around here where you don't know anything about it. They keep it really low key, and then let's vote on it really quickly, and then it passes.
Yeah. For them to turn something down, especially from poor people, just makes no sense. Normally it's, a poor person wants something. Yeah, let's close Skyline so it only goes one direction. Let's. Well,
that was for people. Safety, because if it saved just one person, Dave.
Yeah, if you save one life, it's worth it.
Other news in Duluth, the Airshow is on July 5th and 6th, and I don't know if you've seen it, but I've seen the Blue Angels flying all over the place up here. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was talking about that to my brother this afternoon. Is all the other planes that come out of the airport have a minimum height requirement. Those planes do not. So they're ripping the shingles off the house this afternoon, because they're so low. And
well, they come near our house. They come near our house when they're landing, and you can literally see the pilots inside.
Yeah,
it's so cool. So that's going to be fun to watch from my driveway. And it was a series of many years in a row. I was out of town or something was going on during the air show, and I couldn't be there at my house for it. So this time I'm going to actually be sitting outside watching this air show, I hope.
Yeah, get your ladder out and go sit on the roof and watch.
Yeah, that's not happening. After the third rung,
Well, at least you won't blow your fingers off. That's the main thing. That's why we sit behind mics.
That's right. Tall ships are coming to Duluth July 10th through the 13th. Another cool thing that I have not been in town to see before, and I will be in town this time to see it. So I'm looking forward to that. Good time to come to Duluth. Good time to take some pictures if you're from out of town. If you're from in town, get down to the lake. It's easy enough to do if you live here. You know how to get there.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. I've seen a lot of pictures of them. I never got to experience it yet, so I'm looking forward to that.
And now with the new breaker wall that they put behind the deck, not in front of the deck, but behind the deck.
That's right, on the back door of the deck.
The back of the deck, they'll be able to see. There'll be plenty of room to park them and actually get up close to them. So
I just took a run down there, and they've got so.
Hello, you there? Well, looks like he crashed out, which is pretty typical on a internet show. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Sorry about that. I don't
So
know
you're
why.
running down.
We're on the same internet connection. I don't know why I lost my connection. You didn't.
Yeah, and I didn't. Where you got mice chewing on your line, I think. So you're running down by the tall ships that were they're going.
Yeah, so they've got a bunch of those anchor things that you tie the ships to, and they all have stamped in the concrete 100 ton. So they are for big ships. And there's got to be like 50 of them along that line. So yeah, it's very nice. I mean, I talked about how much it cost, and I didn't think it was, I don't like the idea that they reduced the road size. I know why they did it, because of the tourist ships coming in. I liked having that road there, and I like being able to park there. You can't park there anymore. It's just not going to be possible. So you're going to have to pay for parking to go down there. But it's really nice. It's just like that. I told you about that proposal to put a sidewalk on Kenwood on Howard Neeson Road.
Yeah.
They've got this whole plan. They don't even have an idea how they're going to snowplow it or anything like that. But honestly, if that plan came to fruition, that'd be great for me. But I don't feel comfortable making other people pay for it. So if it passes, I will not support it, but I'll use it and I'll enjoy it. But I don't want you to have to go to work to pay for my enjoyment. Doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on to my favorite topic and yours.
Comic relief.
Big old Tim Walz. So somebody came up with a breakdown of Tim Walz, and I'm going to try to show it here if I can. You can see how unprepared I am for this. This has been quite a week for me, by the way. Quite a couple of weeks for me. So we will show.
If technology allows it.
Yeah. So this is a post by the Skiff. I have no idea who this is. And like all the other things we post here, I will post a link to this in the chat when I post this as a live video. Do your own research. I can't tell you if this guy is right or not. I don't know if this is complete garbage or not. So please take that with a grain of salt. I will look at this. I'll look at other stuff. I don't take this as gospel, but this is what I found. It talks about Tim Walz's ties to a Chinese government selling classified U.S. military intel. And apparently during Walz's tenure, there was some, and I won't go through this whole thing, but there was a tank he was working on that after his visit to China, all of a sudden they had tank designs that were almost identical to the United States. So it says here, after Walz made these specific trips back in the early 90s, after the classified military intel was allegedly sold to the Chinese government, China began producing military tanks almost identical to the U.S. designs. That's not a connect the dot.
I see we're going to deal with that, but yeah, it's not he's not 100% responsible, but you look at the coincidence between when Walz was there and when the Chinese did it, that it makes you wonder. It may not be the truth, but it definitely makes you wonder.
Yes. And I think Tim is watching this right now, so I lost my internet connection again.
Oh yeah, that's why. Okay.
So it's going to be an exciting one.
Yeah,
I
the
wonder if this has to do.
DFL is cutting us off all the time. So
Yeah,
that
right.
makes sense.
So that was just interesting. I'll post that in the chat, or in the notes when we do this. And then I got a couple other ones that have the same thing, talking about Walz with the Chinese tank. And there's another thing is, remember that the guy that murdered the representative just recently, that is no longer in the news apparently, but she was gunned down by this guy who was appointed by Walz. And there was a document that was on the state site, because state sites are public. So you used to be able to go download all these things for free, because they're PDFs, and they were publicly accessible. That document he signed, which was basically it was almost a recommendation of this guy. I know this person, and not him personally. We know this person. He is above average standards. We appoint him to this committee. All of a sudden, you have a paywall to get there now. You're not a paywall, but you have to log in to the state of Minnesota site to be able to see it. That just seems really coincidental of the timing on that.
And then along that same line, the 911 call that came through for that whole situation with the gunman and Hortman disappeared, and they're not releasing it like they should be. And they're saying, well, it was denied because of ongoing investigation. Well, the two doesn't line up, and in the past they've never done anything, even though they've had investigations still ongoing. So for some reason, the state government is hiding the 911 calls that came in on that situation.
Interesting.
Yeah. So now they make it so you have to sign in, so they know who it is, and now they're hiding information. So,
well, just for people's edification, so they can see what this said, we've got this out, and it's a notice of appointment for this man. It's got his address, but he's in jail now, so that's not really. Well, it's a public document. What can I say?
Yeah, it's a public document. So.
Because of the special trust and confidence I have in your integrity, judgment, and ability, I have appointed and commissioned you to have and to hold the office of business manager for Governor's Workforce Development Board, signed by the governor and the Secretary of State. So this seems like a really big endorsement. I don't know if they all look like that or if this is special for him, but isn't that weird?
Yeah, and because Walz is claiming no knowledge of really meeting the guy, so
maybe there could be thousands of these that go out with the same wording into just a thing to just prop you up, I guess.
Yeah,
but
it's more like something you put on a resume than, but
right.
I wouldn't put it on my resume, Oh, the most corrupt state in the union endorsed you. Wow, well, that's
Wray.
Yeah, we'll pass on that.
Yeah, that's not a feather in your cap.
No, definitely not.
I put the next thing in. It's last thing in the Walz thing, and I only put it in the Walz thing because it has to do with China, and I really think that Walz and China are really tied together. But there was a probe into the Chinese having shipped fake driver's licenses to the United States to influence the 2020 presidential election in favor of Joe Biden, or who knows, whatever candidate China may find favorable.
Right.
And there was a FBI investigation into this in a hearing, and the FBI hid this because they didn't want people to feel that the FBI was wrong, because just a couple days before they had said this wasn't the case in a hearing. So the FBI director said this is not a case. So the FBI covered it up because they didn't want people to find out that they were actually wrong.
Right.
And this is serious. I mean, this is Chinese fake IDs coming into this country to do voter manipulation. That's probably the most fundamental thing in our whole republic is voting. And if China is doing it, that's a problem. And if you're covering up just to save face, that's a bigger problem. And there needs to be people going to jail for this.
Right. And I put a story in somewhere in it's under Minnesota news, but we can cover that because it's coincidental. But Secretary of State Steve Simon is not working with he won't give information to the Trump administration, and the Trump administration is trying to find out if there was voter fraud in 2016 and 2020. They're trying to fix a problem of why people don't like our elections because they consider it fraudulent. So Simon isn't going to cooperate with the Trump administration. Well, which brings us back is, was he in the pocket with Walz?
Yeah. Anytime people they don't want to investigate election integrity, you've got to look sideways at that.
Yeah.
If you are honest about an election, honestly, if you won an election, you should have no problem with the ballots being opened up and looked at again. Even if it's not a recount, if it's just viewing them, you should be able to do that. And if you can't do that, it stinks like you're covering something up, which there's a reason the Democrats, and I'm not talking about Democrat rank and file, I'm talking about the leadership. There's a reason they want the illegal immigrants in this country. It's because they can vote. They count them on the census. And even if they don't vote, which I think they are, because we've had people admit they are, the census dictates how many congressional representatives you get.
Yep.
And therefore, that increases your rights to do what you want. So you increases your power.
Yeah.
So
it increases the electoral college also.
Yeah, right. So it increases your ability to vote for president.
Yep.
So there's a reason the Democratic leadership wants this, and we need to get to the bottom of it because you don't feel like your vote counts. What good is it? Why do you fight for anything at that point?
Right. So now, on one hand, we've got the Chinese bringing in garbage, and then we've got Secretary of State Steve Simon not wanting the Trumps to even investigate it, to give them information to try to figure something out.
Right.
And there should be no question we no longer can trust Minnesota elections if that's what we're finding out.
Yeah, and I've told you this for years. The year that who is the guy? Al Franken.
Yep.
When he got elected as senator, he beat a guy who had been governor, and he had lost the election, and then all of a sudden somebody found a bunch of votes in their trunk from someplace, and he won the election.
Yep.
I have been suspect of the Minnesota elections since that date. And the reason is because when Jesse Ventura got elected, I think there was a big deal that people said, we will not let this happen again. We will not let the people decide who's going to be in charge. We will decide who's going to be in charge.
Yeah, we're going to have a two-party system.
And you can call that conspiracy theory or not. I'm just telling you, I have doubts about it. I really think that there is some manipulation going on. And if China is sending in illegal IDs so that people can vote, that's kind of proof. And we need to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah. And if Simon's going to stop the Trumps from looking at it, that just means that we're probably more correct than we even think we are.
Well, look at what was it? How many? 20 million, 18 million extra voters for Biden?
Yeah.
Over Obama? And look what happened. Now that he's out of his presidency, nobody wants to be around him.
Right.
And he didn't have any support. I never saw anybody with like Biden hats or stuff like that. I'd see him with bumper stickers during the election cycle, but there was no big groundswell. Like I saw that with Clinton and I saw it with Obama. I saw people like excited about it. Obama shirts and those posters and all that stuff. Yeah. You can't tell me that if Obama went against Biden, that Biden would win. And so that really was one of those things where it's like, it doesn't make sense. And they showed up for Biden and then they didn't show up for Kamala. You know, it went back down to the same numbers that just about Obama got, right? It's
Right.
like, how did we get 18, 20 million extra voters and then they just went away? How did that happen?
Yeah, the whole thing is starting to really stink to high heaven, basically. So,
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move on to Minnesota legislature. We're doing pretty good. 40 minutes in, we're going to have a nice short show today. You added this new state laws that went into effect on July 1st. Free water at events of over 100 people. What's that one?
So if you have a concert or a fair festival or anything, and you're going to have more than 100 people, you have to, by law, have free water accessible and available to the public. So you have to have some sort of a drinking fountain. You know, like let's say Bayfront Blues Festival.
Yeah.
Somewhere there's got to be free water. You know, you set up a hose, you set up something. That's what that whole thing says.
I'm okay with that. I think that's all right. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like the Bayfront is going to be difficult, but they're going to have to find some way to set up a free water station.
I think they had some when I went to one of their festivals by the porta potties. They just had a big thing where you could get water, like fill up a water jug or something like that.
Yeah, so at least you have some place to, you don't have to pay for. So
right,
I think, I don't know, it's a little unnecessary, but it's, that's what today's laws are.
Well, there's numbers for a number of porta potty. For a certain number of people, you have to provide a place for them to go to the bathroom. A certain number of people, you have to provide security.
Yeah,
water is an essential. I think foods go over the line to me, but water, everybody needs water.
Right, you can survive on water. Yeah.
41.46 million to explore Minnesota, including 5 million for costs related to the World Junior Hockey Championships. 825,000 for Explore Minnesota film, and 671,000 for the 2026 Special Olympic USA Games.
These are all paid events, yet the state is still funding them.
Yeah, I'd say that's a waste of money for.
Yeah.
New law that will provide one-time $100 million appropriation in fiscal year 2026 to reimburse school districts to fund the summer unemployment insurance program. Yeah, we're finally funding this mandate that we stuck out there. Good job, $100 million. What could we do with $100 million?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Sponsored by Emma Greenman and Jennifer McEwen, DFL Duluth. This law will cancel a $77.23 million appropriation made in 2023 for the Northern Lights Express Rail project.
I thought you'd like that one.
I did like that, yeah.
That's a beautiful one.
A district can begin the school year on or after September 1st for the 2026, 2027, and 27-28 school years because Labor Day is as late as it can be in both 2026 and 2027. Wow. Boy, we really are tackling the most important issues, aren't we? Yeah, why is there a law saying you can't start school before that? Maybe that's the bigger question.
Well, a lot of people were complaining because it interfered with the state fair because that's the week prior to Labor Day. God. So, the kids will be in school, so then they can't. So they're not too happy about that. And
well, maybe we should have put that down in the health and fitness.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Let's see. 67.65 million for arts and arts access initiatives. This is a waste of money. I don't think that initiative, the arts initiative, is a bad thing. I shouldn't have to work. You shouldn't have to work to pay for it.
Yeah. When did the state get involved in mandatory art installations, basically?
I remember that they tied arts to a thing for environment. This was back probably 20 years ago. They had this big thing, save the environment, save, the boundary waters and all this stuff. Oh, and by the way, 20% is going to go to arts and entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is the state involved with art at all? It should not be. This is not an essential service for the state. Get out of it. When I'm working on Tuesday, I don't want to go, oh, good. I get to work now for free for the state to do some art that I don't like.
Right.
Let's see, 5.4 million for the 12 Minnesota regional library systems to provide educational opportunities in the arts, history, literary arts, and cultural heritage of Minnesota. Okay, why aren't we just teaching this in school?
Yeah. You're teaching cultural heritage of Minnesota. You just do that in school. That's not you don't need 5.5 more million to do it somewhere else.
Right.
That's what the schools are for.
Sponsored by Dan Walgamot and Omar Fatah. There's a law that contains $1.76 billion with a B for Minnesota State, $1.49 billion for the University of Minnesota, and $760 million for the Office of Higher Education. For what? Does it say?
No, the sheet that I was looking at was just generalizing. They weren't going into specifics, but this the main university doesn't need money. That's what they have the students for.
Huh. Yeah.
Why are they getting it from everybody, from everywhere?
Right.
Just so they can pay their teachers. There's probably going to be 500 people there making over 100,000. That's all we're paying for is their salaries. So
right.
I don't
and
know.
Just a direct message for all you students: if you got to look at your 4-year to 8-year plan for college, multiply out what it's going to cost, and then not just for the school, but for the living there and eating. Multiply that all out and ask yourself, am I going to be able to make this amount of money, first of all, in just my entire career in this subject?
Right.
Or more likely, try to get it within 10 years. Can I make enough money in 10 years to live and to pay this off within 10 years? And if you can't make that equation, really sit down and think, should I get this degree in this subject?
Yeah.
And be realistic too, realistic of what it's going to cost and realistic what you're going to get as far as a job goes. And look at your competition. If you're getting a communications degree, you're going after a small amount of jobs and a lot of people going for them. Same with teachers.
Right.
And then expanding police use of unmanned aerial vehicles, drones, without warrants. Oh, that's just fantastic.
Yeah, that was my favorite part, though. Without warrants.
Without warrants, yeah.
We're just going to come and spy, and see what you're doing. But we're not going to. We need more money and expand the law to make sure that we don't need to get a stupid warrant to.
Yeah. What is a warrant? Just a piece of paper. We'll fly a drone over your house and look into it. That'll be okay. Oh,
yeah,
man.
and the one thing I noticed about reading the list will be on the show notes, but basically everything came from the Democrats. There's hardly any Republicans with their hands in the bills as it was. So it's like, why are you just, I thought we had some say this year because we were the Republicans had a tie in the.
I think our job was to say no.
Yeah, so so the Republicans basically didn't do much of anything. So I don't know.
Well, I think they did a good job stopping the Democrats, at least. Sorry, I'm kind of up my shades. I'm getting too much sunlight there.
One of the laws that the last law that kind of was excluding certain children's recreational vehicles, including all-terrain vehicles, snowmobiles, bicycles, replacement parts, and motorcycles, because they were prohibited before because they had PFAS in them, in the plastics.
Oh, right, because kids might chew on them, right?
Yeah, because the kids were, when parents weren't looking, were chewing on the bicycles or the plastics. So they outlawed those, but they just like the keys, they kind of excluded that law. So
good.
So your keys in your pocket aren't illegal anymore they're going to be July 1st. So
I did see that Duluth on Facebook, the Duluth City Facebook site posted something about lane splitting. So just to describe to people again what lane splitting is, motorcycles, they said bikes too. So they're probably in that. Bikes just do whatever they want. I don't know why they even have to put laws on for them.
right.
But if you're sitting at traffic, you might have a bike go between you and the car to your left or the car to your right. And the law says you can't intentionally impede that person. So I know when you're in a zipper kind of thing going on in the highway, when they've blocked a lane down and you're supposed to go on both lanes, and then at the end you zipper in one after the other, and that's how it's efficient. But many people will push their vehicles out because they don't like the fact that they're sitting in the right lane and people are passing them on the left. They'll impede those cars. You can't do that for motorcycles. And there's laws for the speed they can go and how much over the speed limit they can go. I don't particularly care for it because I think it's dangerous, but at the same time, I don't want to have, if a motorcycle can scoot through it and it's not dangerous for them and they think they can handle it and they're going slow enough, get them out of traffic. It's one less person you have to worry about.
And the maximum speed limit for filtering or lane splitting is 25 miles an hour. So if you're going down the highway, they can't do it.
Right. Only if you're stopped.
It's basically, stop and go traffic is the only time they can do this. So
I used to have this happen to me all the time in the cities when I was in stop and go traffic. So
yeah,
they'd go past you, but I don't know if it was legal or not, but I don't really care if those, just get them out of the way.
Yeah. They're gone in a hurry anyways. So who cares?
Right.
So.
Okay. Let's move on to Minnesota news. Minnesota Republicans have replaced their leader. So Executive Director Jennifer DeJournette is departing as part of a strategic realignment. I saw this pop up and I just saw it today, so I wasn't able to actually read it. Do you know anything more about it?
No, they really didn't go into too much detail, but she's had the job for a while. Minnesota continues to lose as a Republican. The Republicans always seem to lose the important things. We finally got, a split house this year, but we need to. I think it's a good thing to get someone in there that will, get the Republicans to start winning elections.
Right.
And right now we're not doing that. So, maybe she, read the writing on the wall, but we need someone more aggressive in there to get the Republicans to, especially next year, get rid of Walz, get rid of Keith Ellison. He's a waste of our time. So, Steve Simon, the Secretary of State, who's, hiding information from Trump. These people have to go. And
I agree.
We need. They don't have a replacement yet, but they need someone that's going to be really aggressive to get rid of all these people, make Minnesota a red state. So,
yeah, I mean, we just need, if you can't beat Tim Walz after that pandemic, after him, and so assuming there's no election fraud, with him sitting in his basement, not even campaigning, he acted like it was a joke. Like, I don't need to campaign. And he was right. He won. When I ran for Minnesota's House here in Duluth, I don't think my opponent really took it very seriously. I never saw her around. It didn't seem like she was very aggressive. She won by a landslide. Where are the Republicans helping out the smaller areas? And I know, I don't want to badmouth them because I have seen a resurgence. I finally aligned with a lot of the Republicans because for many years I was saying, what are the Republicans doing here? They talk a good game, but if they got into power, they just didn't do anything. Right. And I'm talking about like governors like, Arnie Carlson and who was the other guy? Who is it?
Plenty.
Yeah. I don't look at them as conservatives. They were Republicans, but they didn't seem very conservative to me. And they just seemed to go with the flow. So I finally aligned with the party, and I aligned with my thinking and what they're really pushing the last couple of years. And I'm seeing people getting in like Cal and Natalie, and you're getting into the House where they weren't, no chance before. So it'd be great if we could have a Republican that was in charge, that was actually going to get us a governor candidate that was going to be kick butt and get in there and beat Walz and get a majority in the House or the Senate, so we can at least get some of this cost rolled back.
So she's quitting. So in my opinion, it looks like it's going to be a good thing. Now they didn't mention, they didn't have anyone that wanted the position so far. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah,
This doesn't look like a woman happy that she's leaving. And the people behind her don't look particularly happy either.
well, at least they don't have blue hair, so that's a bonus, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. What's next? Oh my God. I saw that you told me about this, and then I actually saw this on a feed. You've got the Minneapolis mayor, and I don't know if this is in Somalia because somebody said it was in Somalia.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that. Yeah.
But I'll share this, and hopefully the sound comes through. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry goes full Mogadishu. He's on stage speaking Somali. So let's just
Somalia Hanulato! Somalia Igea!
munaasabadan oo ay soo qaban qaabisay hay-adda People in Action oo ah hay-ad sanad walba
it's a
qabata
Somali
munaasabadaha
report, and I think he's there, but I don't know. It could be Minneapolis, could be Somalia. That could be a game show we could play.
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
But let me show you our the Minneapolis mayor here. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What's going on in this state?
Well, he's on their side because he got rid of all the state noise restrictions so they could have their Muslim prayer sirens go off 5 times a day.
Yep.
Which was against the law because it was too loud, but he got it done anyways, and so on and so forth. So
yeah, they in that tweet or that X, whatever you want to call it now, it lists out he legalized blasting the Islamic call to prayer 5 times a day starting at dawn. I remember when they did that. I can't believe they allowed it because I think they were banning Christian churches from ringing their bells.
Yep.
But then they allowed this. He lifted noise laws to let mosques blast Arabic prayers across the city. He worked hand in hand with Hamas-linked CAIR, a group named by the DOJ as an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terror financing trial in U.S. history, and pandered to foreign populations, pushing policies that erase American identity in favor of imported ideologies. And here is something that about Cedar Riverside neighborhood, nicknamed Little Mogadishu. Nearly 40% are foreign-born. 40% of the people there are foreign-born.
Jeez.
47 speak Somali. 25 reported limited English proficiency. So he's catering to them because he needs them to win the election, and he wants to stay in power.
Right.
And this is the same mayor that was in charge during the George Floyd riots, where he did nothing to prevent it.
Correct.
Okay, let's move on. I want to get off of this guy. We're going to move on to national news. Some things about, so when Trump took office, he was talking about months leading up to, and I even talked about this when I was running for Minnesota House, the egg prices. They were incredible. And first, people were like, "What? Who cares about egg prices? You know, that doesn't mean anything. So what? They're $5 now. You can't afford that." That's not the point. Eggs, rice, chicken are staples of people who don't have a lot of money, who can eat well without a lot of money. When I was first starting, when I first got married and we were living down in the Twin Cities, we didn't have any money, but we could buy chicken, we could buy eggs, and we bought a lot of frozen pizzas too. But but you know, it's a way to make your dollar go a lot longer, and it's important. It's important. It's one of the things when that goes up, nothing else is cheap because you used eggs to make everything.
Right.
Right. So when he got into office, I remember I remember the week after Trump was in office on CNN, and those places were like, egg prices aren't coming down. What's going on? Like he could just flip that switch that apparently Biden had that said high cost of eggs, low cost eggs. No, it was the conditions around. You remember they're slaughtering all those chickens,
Yeah,
and
because
all
the
those
bird flu.
chicken
Yeah.
farms and egg farms are going up in flames, and then they were just slaughtering them all. That's what caused the high egg prices.
Right.
So I haven't heard of the bird flu since Trump took office. Literally, have not heard of an outbreak or anything like that, and I haven't heard of any processing plants going on fire. So, so you posted the story here. The Waffle House has dropped their egg surcharge, and so will Trump get credit for that? No.
Heavens, no.
No.
But it shows you egg prices are coming down. It's gonna, the American economy is a slow moving monster. It's coming down. Gas prices are low it's been since 21. So all this stuff is adding up. So Waffle House drops their surcharge on eggs because now they don't have to.
Yeah.
And
It's
that's
like you said, it's like a big ship. You're in a big ship. If you've never been in a big ship, you can turn that wheel all the way over to the left and you're like, nothing's happening. It takes a while and then it moves. You got to know what you're doing to do that. So good.
We don't have Waffle House in Minnesota that I know of. It's a southern thing, but every time I go south, man, I go to a Waffle House because they just have good food that's reasonably priced. And, unfortunately, they had to put an egg surcharge on. Now it's gone. Now everything is starting to come around like it's supposed to be. So
that's good. I saw another
news
place
for the
locally. Locally, there was a place that did a surcharge on eggs. I did see that. I haven't been back there to find out if it's gone now, but I'm hoping it is, and it should be because the prices have stabilized and have started coming down.
Yeah.
All right. I want to move on to this New York mayor candidate because this guy looks like a disaster.
He's a real problem.
And the funny thing is now that he is the Democrat nominee for the office of mayor for New York City. He's going against another Republican who is the leader of that group that watched the subways for a while. And I don't know much about this guy, but I hear this guy is a little radical. And Eric Adams, the existing mayor right now, who's running as an independent. And we live in some bizarro world where I'm rooting for Eric Adams because the funny thing about Eric Adams is he's not the same guy that took office.
Right.
He ran on a completely different platform than he would be running on now. And it's because they kept pumping illegal aliens into his city and he had to take care of them. And he had to start realizing what it meant to do a budget with that.
Right.
And then he dared say something and the Biden administration went after him. In fact, they went after him with the law that they put in place just so they could go after Trump.
Right.
So I've been hearing, I haven't heard what all of his policies are, but I have heard that he kind of woke up to the illegal foreigners in his city and how much they were paying for him and what it was doing to the population. So this has been
really
kind
a
of
moderate Democrat now.
Yeah, he seems like a moderate Democrat. It's interesting to see what's happening though now that this guy has won the primary. I don't think people really realized what he was all about. So I saw this, and I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's like 20 minutes. I'll just play the beginning part of it.
Is about to get crazy.
For me, when you ask what does it mean to be a democratic socialist, for me, it means to be fighting for a society in which dignity is guaranteed to each and every member of this place. And I believe that the state should play a critical role in the distribution of that dignity and the ensuring that that dignity is actually received. This is one case where Republicans would be correct. There are taxes that I want to raise. They would like to portray this as me trying to raise taxes on someone making 50, 60, 70K, which is not the case. what we need to do is raise taxes on those who have more than enough and should share a little bit more with the rest of the.
That is chilling to me.
Yeah.
People who have more than enough, according to whom?
Correct.
And there's other things I'm going to play in here. I'm going to have links to it. We'll just put this up here now since I'm sharing the screen. This guy, he wants to tax what he calls white neighborhoods. Here's the first thing I'm going to show. He said he's going to tax white neighborhoods. I don't know what a white neighborhood is, to be honest with you. I know what he talks about being a white neighborhood. I don't know of any neighborhoods that could possibly be white because you can't discriminate on who can live in a neighborhood. Not based on race, at least. And he outright said this.
Is he going to kick all the minorities out of the neighborhood and then raise taxes?
Oh, maybe that's what he means. So somebody called him on this. So people are actually starting to pay attention to this guy. So they called him on it, and let me just play this because this is his.
And realize there's a policy proposal that says your plan, and I'm going to quote it for folks, is to shift the tax burden from overtaxed homeowners in the outer boroughs to more expensive homes in richer and whiter neighborhoods. Explain why you are bringing race into your tax proposal.
That is just a description of what we see right now. It's not driven by race. It's more of an assessment of what neighborhoods are being undertaxed versus overtaxed.
It's what we're seeing right now. I'm seeing that they're white neighborhoods.
We've seen time and again that this is a property tax system that is inequitable. It's one that actually Eric Adams ran on saying that he would change in the first 100 days. He's since sought to defend it and lost at every juncture in court.
And I understand you're saying we're simply describing the types of neighborhoods that would see these increase in taxes. And yet by invoking race, do you run the risk of potentially alienating key constituents?
I think I'm just naming things as they are.
He's just being honest, see.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And talk about your gentle reporting on this. You know, oh, you're just saying this. Yeah, I think I understand. You're just saying that you're not actually saying they're white neighborhoods. You're just describing them as white neighborhoods. It's not the same thing. So.
Right.
And ultimately, the thing that motivates me.
The thing that motivates him is he's going to take money from people and distribute it to others. So I'll quit that because it's we're definitely having internet issues.
He's going to decide who and what gets taxed. He's going to decide what how much money you are allowed to make. He's going to punish successful people because you've been too successful.
Right.
So you're going to see the largest migration out of New York for rich people. You know, the money, the people that the people that have money that give jobs are gone.
It's going to turn into another Detroit. I mean, Detroit's the classic example of the Democrats coming in and Chicago coming in and just destroying cities.
Correct. Yeah.
And I know Florida is trying to pull them in. I mean, they're saying, come on down. But there's sooner or later, you're going to run out of places to run. Then what's going to happen? You can't just keep moving and moving. You got to stop and fight.
But even Florida's problem right now is that, you know, you get all these people in, you still have to provide services for everybody. Therefore, how do you, with that many more people coming down, how do you continue to provide services? So that would be Florida's problem. Okay.
Yeah. My internet is just going crazy on me today. And I don't know why. I don't really have anything going on.
Yeah, it must be we're gonna have to get a new cord for you because everything's fine on my side, so it's just yours.
Yeah, we're hooked into the same router.
Yeah, so the same internet, so it's either your computer or the connection to it. So and I don't have any spare computers other than the one that I brought down. So
no, the computer's fine.
I've wrecked the rest of them. So
yeah,
put in here.
There is something to talk about. There is a law still on the books that says a person that was associated with a communist party cannot run for office. In fact, can't be in this country. And this guy kind of qualifies for that. I believe he hid the fact that he was in a communist party or something. They're looking at hopefully getting him kicked out of the country, to be honest.
That would be a good idea.
I know that Trump talked about him, and he said, yeah, he knows about this guy. He's keeping a good eye on him, and he's, if he steps out of line, he's going to defund him completely.
But reiterate what's going on. He won the Democratic nomination. He is currently not the mayor of New York. Eric Adams is still the mayor of New York as an independent because he switched out of the Democrat Party. But
Right.
Democrats have won since 1962 or something like that. Or it's been a really long time. But anyways, the big thing was Cuomo. He lost in the Democratic primary.
Yes.
So he's going to be on the ticket as an independent.
Right. He's still running.
He's still
giving up.
running. So it's going to be a very interesting election, having, basically three guys who are massive moderate Democrats that can win. And then, will they get will they split up the Democrat vote enough for the Republican to win? It's really hard to say. So we're gonna have to wait and see on that one.
All right. So we didn't talk about this last week because I think it happened on Thursday, but the Supreme Court has ruled that district judges are overstepping their authority. If you get a chance, go watch the coverage on this and watch what Amy Coney Barrett talked about with our other Supreme Court justice. There was a big slapdown that happened, but ultimately what happened was Trump has been told, yes, you do have the authority to make these executive orders, and you don't have to pass it by the hundreds of district court judges to make sure that it can go in. So I just wanted to bring that up because it was a pretty big news item, but we won't go into too much depth because it's now considered old news.
Yeah, but it sort of isn't, because the Supreme Court of Wisconsin just the last couple of days ruled that abortions are now legal in that state, which they put in a rule in 1879 or something like that, that abortions were illegal. So these liberal judges, Supreme Court, ruled that now they're legal. Well, that doesn't mean that the law, they didn't cancel the law. They can't legislate from the bench, and that's what this ruling is all about.
Yeah.
So they can call it legal, but it technically isn't, because the National Supreme Court said, well, that's overstepping their bounds. So it's going to be interesting to see the level of how this all works out.
Right. Well, I heard a district judge has ruled that the Supreme Court needs to override their previous ruling. So
that works. Yeah.
Let's go on. I found this little nugget from CNN I thought was very interesting, so I'm just going to play this. Hopefully it doesn't blow up my screen again. This is Jake Trapper.
As journalists is not to praise President Trump or protect his feelings or to disparage him or to praise him, for that matter. Our obligation is to report facts. In this case, the fact is,
it's not their responsibility to disparage him. They'll do it. It's just not their responsibility.
Yeah.
That an initial DIA intel assessment out of Secretary Pete Hegseth's own Pentagon.
So a leaked document, they're saying it's leaked from the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Exists. And that's not going to change.
So I'm going to pay the rest of this guy. But basically what it comes down to is, okay, we reported on something, it wasn't true, and we rushed it out, and now we're going to make it look like we're the good guys because of this. So their whole thing is to try to make America look as bad as possible while Trump is in office.
Correct.
It seemed to be that's what they were doing when Biden was in office too, but they took more revel in it. Now they just are going against anything that Trump did. We've talked about this before. Anything that is good, nothing is good. Everything is bad. You know, my
Right.
grandma again. Let's see. I'm going to go into something about smuggling in the United States. If I can just bring this up. This Harvard researcher was taken at ICE custody at Boston Logan, has been indicted. She apparently tried to smuggle clawed frog embryos and embryonic samples into the United States. Does anything sound more horrible than clawed frogs? You?
Yeah. Do we actually need them in our ecosystem?
I don't know, but I just don't want it. I don't want a frog with claws on it jumping onto my car or something.
No.
So this is, now we've talked about this a couple of leaks now. A couple Chinese people in separate incidents have been found trying to smuggle in some bad stuff for our ecosystem, some mold and some things that would destroy crops and make people sick. Now we've got this. We seem to be on a many level front of war going on between these countries trying to just destroy us. I can't imagine what this would have been.
Yeah, is our Democrat legislatures, are they going to fly to wherever she's from and, help her out to try to get her into the country?
Oh, probably. Yeah.
Because Trump said no, therefore they say yes.
That's right. Yes. It must be bad.
Must be bad because Trump said no.
Right. And I did see on X a person that laid it out pretty well here, and I'm not going to play it with all 3 minutes of it, but what it comes down to is he's saying, hey, you know what? We're a superpower again. We're the lone superpower, and we have not been that way for a while. It didn't seem like that when Biden was in office for sure.
Right.
This is a guy that's saying, I'll just play the beginning part of it.
This has been probably the most important week, and I would almost say most important few months in US politics in 30 or 40 years. And the reason is that it starts to converge a bunch of things together that I think are really worth putting on the table. So from my perspective, I think what President Trump has done is almost single-handedly bring back the United States as the global superpower. And
I just want to talk about it. I'll stop it there. I just want to talk about that. Trump is brokering peace deals. He's taking care of problems, things that were festering for years under Biden that he had taken care of, and then Biden just let go of. The war in Ukraine, he's still got to get that taken care of, and I think that's taking a lot longer than he thought it was going to. But Israel and Iran, another war in Sudan, and taking care of the UN. And the UN is now, all these countries are pledging 5% of their GDP to pay for the UN. So getting us to be less responsible for the money that it goes into the UN makes it a lot more palatable for us to be in the.
We lost him again. Yeah. Trump's taking actions where no one else could take actions. So it's good we finally have a president who would, I would assume Biden was being an isolationist and let everybody do whatever they felt like it. And that's what caused the start of the wars, and didn't really help anybody out on, down in, the Sudan wars that, this mainstream media were basically ignoring. So,
right. Well, I think everybody looked at Biden being quote unquote in charge as time to do what we want to do. Nobody's watching the store here.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to get through the rest of this. My internet connection just keeps dying on me. So, do you remember the day after Trump took office, he went to a church and went to a sermon, and this lady who was the minister gave the sermon, and she just basically was attacking Trump and urging him to think about the illegal foreigners that are in the country, and why aren't you helping them out? And she was very proud of the fact that she reprimanded him to her point of view. She made $53 million in 2023 alone, one of her charities, to resettle illegal foreigners in this country. So when you're wondering why they're doing these kind of sermons, follow the money back. That was 1 year.
Right.
I don't know what it was like in 2022 and 2021, probably the same amount. And that was just for her to scatter people across the country to make it harder. And then now we're spending all these billions of dollars to clean that mess up. So hopefully we can save our country.
And that seems to be what it's happening, especially in Minnesota, is create a problem that only the government creates a problem that only the government can fix. So then they can
That's
go
right.
around saying how great they are. See, we fixed this problem. We're not going to say
Problem
we
with-
created it, but
The problem with and solution to all of
Yeah.
your problems. Just like alcohol.
yeah. Yeah, where's Homer Simpson when you need him?
Right. I want to share something from our buddy Ted Nugent. And I thought this was pretty appropriate. It's not because it's from Ted, it's just that Ted shared this. And I want to bring this to people's attention. And I'm not trying to say, again, I have a lot of people that I know that are Democrats. I'm not saying all the Democrats are like this, but the leadership is what you got to look at.
Correct.
And if you want to look at their claim that Republicans are more closer to Nazis, you got to look at some of the things they're doing. High taxes. Well, theoretically, Republicans don't like high taxes, but you can make an argument that they don't care either. But Democrats definitely want high taxes. Pro-abortion, the Nazis were for it, Democrats for it, the Republicans are not in general. Gun control is a big one. The first thing the Nazis did when they got power was take your guns away. Once they do that, they can control the population a lot easier. Government-controlled healthcare, government-controlled education, censored speech. That really is, I mean, you can make the argument here, censored speech. Remember when Biden was in office, he tried to get the information czar position filled with that woman. Individual rights. The Nazis were not for individual rights, and it doesn't seem like the Democratic leadership is either. And that's what Republicans, or I will say conservatives, run on. Pro-military, yeah, Nazis were definitely pro-military and nationalists, and that's where we come into alignment, where our country first and then everybody else, as opposed to the other way around. Nationalizing industries. This is the Democratic mayor candidate. This is the means of production he talked about taking over.
Right.
And I didn't play that one, but yeah, he wants to get the means of production. Oh, he also wanted free subway. This is the New York mayor candidate. Free subway, and then I think it was free food or something like that.
Yeah, government-sponsored grocery stores.
Yeah, guaranteed income. That's more communism. I didn't know the Nazis for that, so I don't know that that's true or not. But I don't know for sure. And removal of religion from government. Definitely the Democrats want that. Definitely the Nazis wanted that. And the communists want that. So I just thought it was interesting. If you were doing a comparison, you're calling everybody who's a Republican a fascist and a Nazi, try to see where your party aligns with them as well. And notice the things that they wanted to do and they did, and where that aligns with your party. And to be honest, I'll look at the things that align with my party. Pro-military nationalists, I don't think are a bad thing. If you think a guaranteed income is a good thing, then you're looking at this as going, yeah, for sure, I want that. I can tell you why I don't think that's a good idea, but notice that the Nazis like that too. So, hey, stop calling the Republicans Nazis if you don't know what it means.
Right.
All right. I think that's it for national news, and I have no international news to talk about, although there is probably something to talk about. I don't have anything on the pipeline here.
No, I didn't have anything international either. Nothing came across my desk that was too interesting.
And that's not a bad thing. I like it when we don't have a ton of international news to talk about. That means we're not spending a lot. Oh, I do know that we've cut off our support to Ukraine. We've stopped the government or the military funding of it. So that's all on the UN now. And that's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's move on to health and fitness, shall we? I want to talk about Kennedy being in Maha, Make America Healthy Again. And things are happening. I don't know if it's because of him, but it sure seems coincidental that these things have started to happen since he took over that position. Smucker's has announced they're removing artificial colors and dyes from their food. And that's a good thing. And I don't think we need it. You don't need to have these things visually that appealing. You know, I know it looks great when your grape jelly is bright purple.
Yeah.
But I don't really eat that anymore, so it doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah, and Walmart also announced they'll be with their home brands. They will be getting rid of all of the color additives. So
Good.
they say so. But you know, it's going to take them a year, but still, at least they're working on it now. So,
I want to talk about something completely different now with health and fitness. Do you remember? Did you ever get government cheese when you were a kid?
no, but my uncle who is now deceased, he was caught bringing that into his restaurant that he owned and
really?
serving that. Yeah.
So,
And it was the government cheese program. He was, instead of buying the cheese, he was using the government program cheese.
do you know why we had government cheese? What started it?
No, I do not.
Prohibition.
Oh.
Now you're trying to do some calculations in your head right now to try to figure out why prohibition had to do with government cheese. And I'm going to put a link in our comments that talks about this. But the big story is during prohibition, and that was in the 20s when they stopped, you know, they made it actually a constitutional law to prohibit alcohol in the United States. Talk about a government that had lost its way at that point.
Right.
So all these bars, there was thousands of bars in the United States. They switched to being ice cream parlors. They had to make money. They wanted to stay open. So there's this huge influx of dairy being bought. So this actually started off dairy industry. Before that, people didn't just concentrate on making only dairy stuff, but now there was dairy farms. Well, then prohibition goes away, but we're in World War II. So they're still doing it okay. But then those troops come home and the government's not spending, you know, the government's buying all this dairy now instead because they've got troops to feed and give them milk. Well, now the troops come home and the government doesn't need it, but they continue the subsidies. So they tell the dairy farmers, well, we'll still buy your dairy. So what do the dairy farmers do? They crank production. So now the government has all this milk and they convert it into cheese because it's easier to store. And now we've got 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. They're storing all this cheese, millions of pounds of cheese underground. And according to, and you can watch this link by this guy. Apparently Reagan said, well, we can't do that. Let's throw it in the ocean. They floated that idea and people went, no, we can't just throw it in the ocean.
No, that doesn't make sense either.
Let's give it away. So senior citizens and people of lower income, poorer people, or not necessarily poor, but you know, not as wealthy, got government cheese. We got government cheese. I was talking to Dawn. She got government cheese too, and it was good. Actually, it was not bad. It was great having this government cheese, and I think that launched this whole generic food branding they did for a while, where you'd buy white packages of cornflakes or other stuff that wasn't government related, but since the government cheese was in white, everybody wanted to do that. So,
yeah, I remember the generic beer.
Do you remember the got milk thing?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That was the government trying to get off of paying for all the milk to get people to buy more milk so they could get off of it. I just found it really fascinating that government cheese came from prohibition. So I will post that link. The guy goes into great detail. He's a really good guy. He posts a lot of really good stuff. So check out his YouTube channel. And we're gonna, before we talk about let's talk about our individual healthy habits this week, because I want to show this thing last before we go. So I was able to go out running today, and I ran a couple other times this week. And I got into the gym once. So not great for weightlifting, but at least I got in there. What about you?
Yeah, I have a lot of personal issues at home, so I got a couple of workouts in. Yeah, 3 workouts and not enough cardio. I
Mm.
gotta start getting on cardio a lot better. And unfortunately, I don't see that really happening in the next few weeks. So I'm gonna be
No.
I'm gonna be low for the next few weeks, and then we'll get back on it again.
Right.
But and from doing heavy lifting, my body's not working too well, so it's good to take a rest. So
Yeah.
but I got to do
heated
more
up.
cardio personally and less weights. But
Oh, well, don't have to do less weights, but
we still need to move. So,
with your schedule, I'm amazed you got to do anything. So good job on that.
we'll get something done though.
It's important to go out and get moving, and you gain muscle in the gym and you lose weight at the kitchen.
Yeah.
So if you're going out and working out and walking and running and lifting, and you're still pulling in a lot of calories and carbs, you're not going to lose weight. You're getting healthier because you're putting on muscle and you're losing some fat, but don't expect to be losing weight, especially if you're working out in heavy weights. You will actually be gaining weight. So weight gain and loss shouldn't be the natural goal, and you should just disregard it for the first 6 months of your working out anyway. Diet is going to do it. And then I suggest that you don't do diet and exercise starting at the same time, because that can be devastating. Usually what happens is you start doing it, you feel really good the first day. Second day you go work out, you're still not eating. Now you're getting really hungry, and then you're getting really sore. And then Saturday comes and you just want to eat and lay down and go to sleep. So
yeah,
I will leave the ending of our show with this. I'm not going to do the audio for it. I'm just going to show it because I think there's a copyright on the song. And this is not how you want to look in your 20s. So when I'm talking about a healthy body style, it's not this. I literally think this woman is like early 20s and not going to make it much longer, I don't think.
no, definitely not.
And I think my comment was I got diabetes watching that. So sad to see. But so hopefully she goes out and does something. She's still moving. The reason I say she's young is because she could still move pretty well.
Yeah, she's still standing upright, so that's a bonus. At least she
Right.
can walk. If she can walk to her car like that, she can start walking every day.
Right.
And I would suggest get a dog.
I would suggest not eating the calories she's eating too.
Yeah. If she got a dog, then that would force her every day to take the dog for a walk, 2-3 times a day to take the dog for a walk. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it would be, any excuse to keep moving. So,
Right. All right. Let's wrap it up for today. Just one more note. I just want to say, because I've been talking to some people and they're very frustrated with what's happening in Trump administration and what he keeps winning these court cases and keeps winning this deportation and the big, beautiful bill. Just understand that I understand what you're going through, because that's what we felt like for the last 4 years under Biden and 8 years under Obama. And I get what it's like. Just because you're frustrated doesn't mean you give up your principles, and you don't get so angry you start hurting people. And please keep that in mind.
right.
Otherwise, if you like what we're doing here, please like and subscribe, give us comments, give us feedback. It's always nice to hear from you guys. I have heard from a few people, and we try to make adjustments to the show if we find them reasonable. So let us know. Otherwise, until next week, we will be back here next week with more information, trying to help you learn stuff that you may not have heard before, or just have a polite conversation about stuff without people screaming over each other. So until next week, I am Sean.
I'm Dave.
Here's a shocker for you guys. Have a great weekend. Have a great 4th of July. Enjoy the show, Airshow if you're in Duluth, and we will see you next week.